Welcome to the Mormon to Medium podcast. I'm Brad, and I'm here with Navnette.
Hi, guys.
And today we are going to talk about something that came up a few weeks ago as we were talking, because we were watching that show, American Primeval. Do you remember that?
Right, yeah.
And what we were talking about is like all of the ancestors from those people who committed those atrocities during the Mountain Meadows Massacre. And we talked a little bit amongst each other. It was really just you and I with each other about how much generational trauma something like that passes down.
Right. Energy is energy. And so you've got the perpetrators that put this on, and then they pass that energy on to their ancestors, which are millions of people by now. So interestingly, all these people carry this kind of energy.
Yeah, which has got to be something that just bubbles up at the most random times, right? So like you're just going throughout your day, and can you imagine having that guilt of going, wow, I did these horrible things. I am not a good person, following you around, but not being your shit.
Or on the flip side, what if it's you really are a shitty person? You know, and you were the perpetrator of these murders, and then you hand down that shitty person energy down to your ancestors. So they literally are psychopaths. They're literally.
So you're
it could be both sides.
Got
right?
it. So somebody might be going, wait, I am such a shitty person. Why am I a shitty person? And trace it all the way back through their ancestry.
It might be interesting to see how many of the millions of people that are ancestors from the perpetrators of the Mountain Meadows Massacre, how many of them have actually become criminals?
That is an interesting point. You know, here's my thought with it. I think a lot of them were literally just doing what they were commanded to do by their religious leaders, right?
Right.
And so they thought they were in the right, but it still has got to eat you up inside going, I literally just shot this person in the head.
And see, I can never, I don't care what time of life or, you know, what year or whatever, if somebody tells you to murder someone in cold blood like that, there's got to be a moral compass that all of us have as souls to know that it's not the right thing. Like you have to go through that struggle and make a decision to be like, I'm going to do it. I'm doing this, and I'm on board with this just because I want to be accepted by this group or whatever the reason is. Do you know what I mean? But there has to be a point of accountability to where they made that choice. Flipped a switch, and we're like, yeah, I'm comfortable killing all these people.
Yeah, they had to own it at some point. But if you think about it, though, there really was a big push of an us versus them within the Mormon community at the time.
Right.
So... And we've talked about Mountain Meadows a couple of different times on the show.
Yeah.
But there was that push, right? Hey, we've got Johnson's army coming in, and they're going to destroy us and kill us, and we've got to start saving all of our provisions for war and start prepping for it. Essentially, there was zero prophetic ability that came out during that time period.
Honestly, how is that different than nowadays? Like, we're still living by fear. Except for now, instead of the army coming, Christ is coming. So like, it's literally a fear mongering thing that the church does to get people to make action to benefit them.
Oh, do you know what? That's a valid point. You're right. Because that is the big thing. You know, the funny thing is, I remember my grandma telling me that when she was a little girl, they were telling her, yes, we're in the latter days and you are such a blessed generation.
Oh, I heard that in the 80s. Seriously. Right. Like, that's all they ever talked about.
It was like the same rhetoric over and over again.
Yeah.
But yeah, the prophetic, you know, abilities of the presidents of the church, the prophets, the leaders, that doesn't seem to be very prophetic because they're not really giving us any prophecy.
Well, and you can see them coming from a mile away because they gaslight in the exact same ways. They boss people around in the exact same ways, and everything's about fear, all hinging on something they have nothing to control about. It's all hinging on your afterlife that they don't know zip about, and neither do you, unless you've done your spiritual work, and then you probably know more than they do.
Yeah. Well, but it's terrifying, right? And that's how they use that control to get people to do
Exactly.
heinous things like murdering a group of defenseless pioneers.
Right. Right.
So with that, can you explain a little bit about what generational trauma really is?
Well, generational trauma, it can be a couple of things. It can actually be an act of something. So, for example, if there's rape energy, it can go through the women in a generational line, rape energy handed down from generation to generation and generation, and you'll have a whole family full of women that have all been raped. That type of thing. Or, I mean, you're talking about a massacre. You've got that massacre energy. You've got that murder energy. And you will probably have a whole line of family members that carry that energy. And that's what I'm saying is I wonder how many of them have committed a crime or been psychopaths, or do you know what I mean? It would be really interesting. I don't know how you'd find that out, but it'd be really, really interesting to delve into that and see that lineage and kind of what their energy has done. Now, there is a way to release that energy and have it no longer a part of you or future generations, but it's hard shadow work, and it's work that you have to sit with and process and let go of and release. But it's the same kind of energy, whether it's a belief system or an action or whatever. You know, you can have belief systems that run through generations too of I'm not worthy, or, you know, I've seen it handed down for 5 generations. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. And then I have a client laying on my table saying, I've never felt like I'm worthy, but I don't know where it comes from.
Right.
And then you balance them and find out that it was 4 generations back, that it came from a grandfather on this side. And then it makes sense because it's like, yeah, that's how you used to act. And then my father acted like this, and now I do. That makes sense.
Right.
Type of thing. So I think it's the same trauma, trapped emotion. So it can be a trapped emotion, a trapped old belief system, or a trapped trauma. Either way, they're the beaver dams and the energy, and it's generational. It can be handed down from one generation to the next. Energy is energy.
Got it. So you talk about there are ways to release that, and you talk about shadow work, which is a super popular term right now, right? A lot of people are like, oh, you've got to do your shadow work.
Yeah.
If you haven't done your shadow work, you're not healing.
Oh my gosh.
So before we go into other ways of releasing, what do you mean when you say shadow work? What does that define like for you?
You know, from what I have seen and from the experiences with my clients and with myself, shadow work is the parts of you that you want to keep recessed in the shadows, that you don't want to talk about. The parts of you that give you those old belief systems, those hidden emotions, that I'm not loved, I'm not wanted, I'm nothing, I'm not smart. You know, all those things that could come from generational stuff, or it could come from an experience that you've had, you know, from the eyes of a small child. All of our perceptions are different. So you can have something happen to you. Let's say you're in junior high school and you get tripped down the hall and everybody laughs at you and your books go flying. It's completely humiliating.
Yeah.
Which you equal that to mean something about you, right? So you beat yourself up for the rest of your life because you feel like you're not worthy. You have no friends. Do you know what I mean? So from the perspective of a child, you see those things and they equal this belief system. So it could be something that happens to you at 3 years old where you got beat up or whatever, and you have a perspective as a 3-year-old that will give you that belief system, right?
Got it.
So depending on whatever age it is, you'll bring it through your life and carry that belief system with you throughout your life, and it'll show up every once in a while, and you kind of just don't understand why or where or whatever. But yeah, you can release those things, body, mind, and soul, and have it no longer be a part of you. And then when you do that, you no longer feel that way about yourself.
Got it. So the shadow work is literally just addressing those dark recesses of your mind that say, hey, keep this hidden away in this box because it hurt.
Be ashamed. You should be ashamed. You know, you don't want people to see this part of you because it's a horrible, embarrassing part of you.
Gotcha.
And when you do your shadow work, I call it sitting in your shit. You pull it out, you find out what it is and what happened and who was involved, and you sit with it and you understand it. And then all of a sudden, when you sit with it long enough, you begin to love it. And that's when you become unfuckable with, because literally there's no shame associated anymore. It's just something that somebody did that was mean. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? It's no longer equals I'm not wanted or loved and I don't belong. It's that person was just being a dick because he felt shitty about himself.
Gotcha.
Now I give a different perspective and the healing can take place. So yeah, shadow work is sitting in your shit and learning to love it and then standing up and crawling out of it. And that's when you do that, the hole fills in and it's no longer there. And then you become unfuckable with.
Got it. So what are the steps to take to start doing that? Because, I mean, you talk about it so cavalier, like, it's no big deal, but it's not something that's just going to happen easily. What are the steps? So if I wanted to go do my shadow work, what do you tell me to do? Or how do I even start or begin to address those deep-seated emotions and feelings?
I think a really good way to do it is journaling. You can journal about how you feel about yourself and then kind of just break it down. Like, where did this belief system come from? And if you don't know, there's balances for that we can find out where it came from and why it's there.
Nan's catchphrase. There's a balance for that.
There's literally thousands of balances. I have balances for so many things, nearly everything. The body can completely heal itself 100%. I have zero doubts. It's just, how long has the dis-ease been there? How long has a beaver dam been there? If it's been there for generations, it might take a minute. Do you know what I mean? But I think really getting in touch with your emotions, really sitting in it and being like, why have I always attracted these type of men, for example? I've had some crappy marriages, some crappy relationships. I look back on it now, and this Nan would never be with the people that I was married to or dated, like, ever, besides Corey. But like, I literally, that's just where I was then. And it was because I was so desperately looking for acceptance and love. And there's reasons for that. So when you sit in your shit, you have to look at the reasons why you did things and then figure it out and then give yourself grace, because you were doing the very best you can with the tools you had at the time. Right.
Well, I definitely know that I have been lucky to witness you become the best version of Nan.
Huh?
No, seriously.
Thank you.
I'm the guy who's like, oh yeah, because of all that other bullshit, she's become this amazing woman and I get to reap the benefits. So that's super cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I definitely wouldn't be this Nan without that Brad.
Oh, it's kind of a growing situation. So as you've healed that and you went, okay, now here's how we deal with our shadow work and here's what I can do to do this. What's the next step?
As you start to heal, what happens is, as with other things in the universe, when you move things out, like when you clean house and you do all your spring cleaning, you make room for new things to grow in place of that. So if we clean up our yard and we do our spring cleaning, it makes room for new flowers to grow, right? And things grow better and they're more beautiful and vibrant. It's the same thing with cleaning your home. Same thing with cleaning your spirit. You clean house, you get rid of the shadow work, you sit with it, you understand it, and there's room for so much light in there. Then you start to step into your spirituality. You start to step in to who you are as a spirit having a human experience. And that's a very powerful, beautiful place to be, because then you're starting to, starting to grow your clairs. You're starting to work with the other side a whole lot. You're starting to be more sensitive and seeing people from a spiritual perspective.
Okay.
Instead of seeing them as a human. Does that make sense? So you give a lot of grace, where sometimes grace isn't really warranted. Looking from your injured eyes, you'd be like, no, they told me I was this horrible person because I believe this way. When in actuality, they're looking through the lens of fear, and you start to see, oh my God, they're afraid.
Well, it's hard to see perspectives, right? We like to see our own perspective because that's what's comfortable and familiar. And sometimes it's hard to look from other people's perspectives and go, wow, what were they thinking when they said this or did this or acted that way? So yeah, I think you've got something big there. Perspectives are important.
They are important. And that's the thing. When you do your shadow work, you're not in your way anymore. Your perspective is more clear and you're seeing things from a spirit's perspective.
Got it.
And so there isn't that judgment. There isn't that bias. There isn't your own pain in the way of the way you see other people.
Right.
You just see them on their journey, and you have to honor them there, even though it's really hard to see them stooping and you know that they could do better. You have to let them find out their journey and work their journey. And I think that's the hardest part is for being healed and walking that path, is to, you want everybody to see how awesome they are.
Right.
And not everybody wants to see how awesome they are. Sometimes people love their pain.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets comfortable, and change is hard. We all hate change, but
Yeah.
it's something that's necessary. So we've worked on our shadow work, and we've healed our own, or some of our own bullshit, right? It's always continuously
we're always growing.
going.
We're always learning.
So the next step, how do we heal that generational trauma that's not our bullshit? And, we've set in this and we've gone, oh, I've done all this shadow work and I've done all this stuff, and I still have this feeling of that I'm a disappointment to everyone around me. How do you recognize, okay, that's not mine, that's someone else's, and maybe this is some generational trauma that I've got to work through?
Well, like I always say, there's balance for that. And during an energy balance, we can find out exactly, who it's coming from, and you can release that. A lot of times we'll surrogate people in our family too. Let's say you're super, super close to your mom, and your mom has a certain belief system, and she constantly rips people down or is constantly negative, and you tend to surrogate her because you look up to her and she's your mom, and you want to be just like her, even though she has these qualities that aren't so likable.
Right.
And then you start to act like her instead of acting like you. And it can happen to a lot of people in a lot of different families that have come from, low vibing, toxic type families. So, it's really interesting in energy work to find out, am I surrogating someone else? Do I want to be someone else and I don't want to be me? Am I even me? And then being able to step into your own truth and light, because this earth is our school. We're supposed to be learning. And if we're not learning, we're getting an F.
Right.
Plain and simple. You don't want that.
Well, you don't want to have to retake this course. I'd rather be done.
Yeah. It's coming from an old soul, that's done this lots of times. Yeah.
Yeah, I've fucked up a lot.
Yeah. We're done fucking up. Yeah, it's time to find joy and peace. And I want that for everyone. That's the hardest part of my job, is seeing people that don't see the light in themselves, and they just want to go down the pain aisle. I'm going to take that pain and that one and that one and that one and that one and all those pills, and that's how I'm going to live my life. And it's
right.
like, but you can heal this, and you don't have to have all those things.
So when you get someone on your table and you are working on that stuff, what happens? How do you know, how do they know when they're starting to tap into that generational trauma and they're helping to move it along?
Usually when I tune in to my clients before I balance them, I always ask for spirits from their side, their ancestors, to come forward if they'd like to help with this balance. And 99% of the time, if it's generational stuff, they will show up at the end of the table and I will see them.
Well, and okay, I think you touched on something that's super important to clarify.
Okay.
So with your modality of healing,
yes,
not everyone has the psychic and medium abilities that you do.
Right.
And so you incorporate that into your healings and
yes.
into your touch for health, into your kinergetics, into whatever it is that you're utilizing, versus most people who just go through the functions of the modality.
Exactly.
So it's very different than what you might get with another practitioner.
But it's who I am. So why would I not use it when I'm doing energy work? You know what I mean? Like, whether I'm working or not, I'm always in tune with spirit. I'm always getting the download. I'm always getting the warnings and all the things. So why would I turn it off just to do an energy balance when I get energy's energy? And if I can take advantage of your grandmother's energy to help you heal, as well as mine, as well as yours, why would I not?
Right.
It's such a huge blessing. And if it's generational, you can move that energy out for your grandmother.
Right.
And they release it too. So you actually do a double healing.
Oh, well,
which is really cool.
Let's get into that a little bit more. Talk about moving that out and how, like I said, how do you know? And I interrupted you because this is different, but you were talking about how you will tune into people.
Yeah, I usually will tune into people because a lot of times I don't know who's coming through my doors and they're coming to my home. And so I tune into them to see what kind of people they are and kind of what I'm dealing with. And Spirit will show me exactly what's going on. And I've had like 2 times out of all the times that I've done balances and stuff, I've had 2 times where the people were not good energy. And I've turned them away and told them that they need to find someone else, and I gave them their money back. But most of the time, everything's great. And like I said, 99% of the time before I even tune into them, they'll follow me around all morning. I know that it's going to be a generational thing and that they're going to be able to help heal some generational things. So it's really, really cool. But I can always, you could bet money. If they show up, I can tell you exactly who they are, what they look like. I don't know what emotions coming through or what trauma's coming through yet, but I know that it's going to be a generational thing. And that person that I'm working on has it from that person.
Interesting.
So you could bet money on it. Take it to the bank.
Well, and it would make sense that those ancestors would come through because they want to help us.
Absolutely.
They want to help us through. They're part of our team, as you say all the time, right?
Yes.
So they want to be here to help us. So that makes perfect sense.
And I ask them to. If they want to help in this, I ask them to. Because most of the time, my clients are tapping into their own spiritual gifts anyway. Remember how I said, as you sit with your shadow work, you move out the old and make room for the new. So that makes room for your own spirituality. That makes room for your own connection to the other side to be happening effortlessly. So many times they'll feel them standing right next to them. They'll get the full body chills. They'll be like, look, I'm like, I know this is who it is. And this is what they look like. And this is who they say they are. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, yes. Or they'll send me pictures when they get home. Is this who was by the table? And I'll be like, it was this person or whatever. Yeah. But it's fascinating, but you could, like I said, you could count on it. If they come through and they show up, they're part of the healing too. They get a balance too.
Got it. So long story short, if somebody out there has a long past relative who was part of the Mountain Meadows Massacre, they should come to you at Zenergy and get a balance.
100%.
And heal that shit and get it to move along and become their best self without that generational trauma.
Right. And that's haunting energy. That'd be some heavy stuff.
Oh yeah. Well,
probably cursed energy, I would say.
Right? Yeah.
Like probably bad things happen to these people because karma's a bitch and she always gets paid. So I would imagine that these lineages, is that the right word? Lineage? I don't know. It's been a long day. Anyways, you know what I'm saying? I imagine that they have some bad karma coming back to them.
Yeah,
they probably have bad things happen to them. They feel like they have bad luck maybe in their life. They're low vibers. And I don't know that I'd want that. So yeah, that would be tough. Definitely get balanced and release that shit. Not worth it.
No, that makes sense. So what advice do you have to people for the week?
Oh my goodness. I think a lot of people are starting to wake up, and I'm not talking about woke up. I'm talking about wake up spiritually. But they're having an issue with so much going on around us that they get caught up in the freeway in their head. So remember to get quiet. And I'm not talking just sit in a chair and be quiet. I'm talking get quiet with your soul. Get quiet inside and listen. Just get a little sip of your spirit and be like, where am I at right now? What do I need to learn right now? Kind of touch into yourself and feel what's going on and what you need to be doing. Your intuition will kick in and you'll be able to know. And not to mention, you do stuff like that. You're going to sleep better. You're going to think better. You're going to get that brain working better. So everything's just better. So that would be it with everything that's going around, all the confusion in the brain. Get quiet because that's where you find truth.
I think that's fantastic advice and exactly what all of us need more of. Thank you so much. I love talking to you. These are like the best dates ever. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening and joining in each week. We sure appreciate it and we love you guys. Don't forget to leave a great review for us. That helps push the algorithm and gets us out there so more people can hear what we have to say. Thanks a ton and we'll see you
on the other side of the veil.